After 27 years in an apartheid prison, Nelson Mandela emerged the world's most famous prisoner. He never forgot others who, like him, suffered behind bars. And one practical innovation he pioneered was a commitment to a radically new vision of prisons and how we treat prisoners. Through institutions like the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services, which is meant to really undo some of the appalling conditions that are typically found behind bars. We evaluate today the work of the JICS, and Judge Edwin Cameron is with us. He is the Correctional Services Inspecting Judge. Justice Cameron, thank you very much for joining the program tonight. We appreciate your time. Talk to us about the distance between the founding mission and the realities of our prison conditions.
Iman, wonderful to be with you and SABC viewers. Thank you very much. Let us start with what your main item was. You haven't asked me about that, and I wouldn't like to comment on it, but what it underscores is the tough job of living in a constitutional democracy. Minister Lamola, for whom I have the highest regard, did his job. He said no. And then the courts did their job. And I'm sure that Justice Zonda, obviously I haven't spoken to him about it, but the Chief Justice is a man of integrity and highest principle. And sometimes doing his job is also hard. So let us go then to the issue of incarceration. We are living in a constitutional state, and one of the Constitution's provisions is that prisoners must be provided with conditions which are consistent with human dignity. That was the promise that the Mandela-era Parliament and the Mandela-era presidency made, and it was a promise as much to Mandela, who suffered inhumane conditions for many years of his imprisonment. And we have not kept that promise. There are many constitutional promises that we haven't kept. People like me, judges, we didn't keep our promises of sufficient socioeconomic rights, but we also have failed in prisons.
Well, you beat me to the Janusz Walus question. I was going to save that for last because I think it made for a good tie-in between the substance or the focus of our interview today, which is about the transformation of our prisons. And maybe we'll circle back to that question again at the end. But share with us some of the violations that you are seeing in our correctional facilities, which jar against the backdrop of the work that the Inspectorate is meant to be doing.
The first thing, Iman, is the terrible overcrowding. Our prisons are crammed, 150,000 prisoners, and 1/3 of them, 50,000, are awaiting trial. Now, we must put this in perspective because we have the highest number of incarcerated people anywhere on the African continent. We got the figures. The minister challenged us, rightly. He's a thoughtful person at the head of the department. He said, how do you know that? And we've compiled for him a comparative list. Let me give you and your viewers an example, Iman. Malawi, 18 million Malawians, 15,000 prisoners. So you'd expect that a comparative figure for South Africa would be about 45 to 50,000 prisoners. We've got 3 times that number. So we are wholly over-incarcerating people. Another figure that I think your viewers would like to know. 1995, how many people are serving life imprisonment in our country? 400. Today, almost 18,000. So we're doing something terribly wrong. And my submission to your viewers, and I hope that we can have a debate about this, is that our minimum sentence system is not working. We know that there are about 24,000, now reaching more because of the murder figures, 24,000 murders a year in South Africa. It's a terribly high figure, but only 22%, 1/5 of murderers are actually prosecuted successfully, which is a dismal conclusion that almost 80% of murders in South Africa don't go to successful prosecution. It doesn't help to take a small number of murderers and send them away and lock them up and throw away the key. We've got to do other crime prevention strategies. The long sentence strategy doesn't work. I'm not saying, Iman, that some people don't have to be locked up for a very long time, possibly forever. But that's not what we should be doing as a matter of rote to the minority of people that our criminal justice system is convicting and sending to jail.
When you talk about that overcrowding, and it might be a picture that's very hard for the public to see. As a young reporter, I remember going to prison, awaiting trial, and seeing people sharing space on a bed, a really, really cramped environment that they live in. And then, as you say, we live in an incredibly violent country. For people who want, people to be thrown behind bars and for the key to be thrown away because they've suffered such, permanent losses in their lives through the scourge of crime, how do you balance, and again, we'll come back to the teeth the JICS must have, but how do you balance humane conditions with the damage that is left in society wrought by crime and criminals?
I humble myself when I meet victims of crime because we are all scared of crime. You, I, your viewers are. But we've got to go back a few steps, Iman. Our murder rate fell, our violent crime rate fell from 1994 until 2011. And then it started going up dramatically. It's still going up more than 10 years later. Why? I want to tell you why, Iman. Under the previous presidency, crime intelligence, the SABC, the SAPS leadership, National Prosecuting Authority were basically trashed. Crime intelligence is central. We need to find out who's stealing the copper cables, who are the masterminds behind the zamazamas. We know who the zamazamas are. Sometimes we catch cash and transit robbers. Sometimes we catch the systematic housebreaking gangs who are inflicting terror on our township and suburban households. But we haven't got the masterminds. For that you need an effective crime intelligence system, which was trashed under President Zuma and hasn't been rebuilt successfully. You need policemen on the beat, policemen and women, effective policing, effective CID, which is the detective services. So I'm not giving quick answers. I know that we all want quick answers to crime. But one thing I can say, as a judge who sentenced people to life myself in the High Court, who confirmed life sentences on appeal in the appeal court and in the Constitutional Court, the one thing I can say with certainty is that long sentences on their own don't help prevent crime. You've got to do the tough job of rebuilding crime intelligence, of rebuilding the police with competent people right through all levels of the police to find the masterminds. The masterminds aren't the people who they arrested in Carltonville when they said we found the kingpins behind the zamazamas. The masterminds are far higher up. And that's part of the difficulty, that crime intelligence should be saying there are people in political office, there are people perhaps in the police, we suspect very strongly in the police, who are the masterminds behind this mass crime wave that we are all struggling with. Now, I'm not saying hand out the keys, open the doors, release everyone. I'm saying let us start a systematic crime intelligence, crime containment strategy. And once we're doing that, we will see that minimum sentences, life sentences for a small minority of the criminals and murderers and rapists that we actually prosecute, those sentences aren't effective in containing crime.
What could be done then, or how, if more effective, could the JICS be if its teeth are sharpened?
Well, you ask a beautiful question, Iman, because under the Mandela presidency, a new beginning was started, an innovation, which is a judge-headed prisons inspectorate. I'm privileged to be the inspecting judge of prisons now, and we've got powers, but we haven't got enough powers. Now, the Constitutional Court said 2 years ago that we've got to become autonomous and independent. We haven't finished that job. It gave us 2 years to do it. Minister Lamola was right behind us. The National Commissioner, Mr. Makoti Tobukali, was behind us. We didn't manage to get the legislation through because National Treasury didn't give us the extra money that we need to become independent. So for the moment, we're languishing with insufficient powers. We do our job, we've got inspectors, we've got a unique system, Iman, where every prison has got an independent correctional center visitor. It's a very good system, but we don't have enough powers to ensure. What do we do, for example, when we've got evidence that there is personnel on inmate violence? We are powerless. We can ask the SAP to come and investigate, the SAPS. We can ask the NPA to prosecute. It hasn't happened. There was a terrible incident in Brandvlei prison, not far from where I am right now in the Cape. I'm down here for work. And there was captured on video a departmental personnel who set dogs on 2 prisoners who died. They've still not been prosecuted. So JICS needs extra powers. We need more cooperation with the NPA. We know the NPA is sorely overstretched. We know the police are. But the tough job in our country, Iman, is there's nothing in our country that's not working now that we can't fix with enough determination and practical skills. And we can do that also with crime intelligence, with detective work, and with the SAPS. Sentencing is part of that. And sometimes harsh sentencing is part of that. But it's not the panacea that Parliament thought it was when they enacted these harsh sentences.
Well, let's close in the manner in which you started, Justice Cameron, circling back to the Walus issue. When you talk about, as you say, other facilities where you can see even evidence of complicity or the involvement of certain individuals, the lack of accountability and holding to account those individuals. What do you think should happen in this Walus matter? One would say, the most hated men in South Africa, you know, who some people would say got his comeuppance when he was stabbed in prison. How should things, from a justice perspective, play out now on that score?
Iman, I won't patronize the people who are so enraged, the family who are grieving, the members of the public who are angry. As a lawyer and as a constitutionalist, I'm a process person. The minister got the parole application. He refused it more than once. He did his job. That was his job as political head of the prison system, to decide on the parole. And then the Constitutional Court did its job. And I have utmost faith in the integrity and the commitment to the Constitution, both of the Minister and of Chief Justice Zondo and my former colleagues in the Constitutional Court. It's a tough outcome, and it's an outcome which I believe that we should accept because of our Constitution. We are failing many things in our Constitution, but sometimes we have to simply accept that the rights belong to everyone. That is what Mandela said. We test ourselves by how we treat prisoners. Now, I'm not a judge. I never saw Mr. Walus's parole application. I haven't talked to the minister. Obviously, I haven't talked to my colleagues in the Constitutional Court of Chief Justice Zondo, but I believe firmly they did their job. And sometimes we have to accept the outcome of a just, fair, and careful process.
But just to sharpen it a little bit on the point of what happens to those who attacked Walus, you know, in a perfect system, what should happen there?
Well, you know, with hindsight, I would say, should he have been separated the moment the Constitutional Court gave its order? I'm not an on-the-ground personnel member. I've only got respect for almost all the DCS personnel whom we require to do this terrible job. So I can sit here with you, Iman, and say, yes, I'm being clever. Why didn't they put him into a single cell immediately? Perhaps that should have been done. But that he was exposed to a violent attack is a wrong. Whatever we have done in South Africa, we have not got the death penalty for murder anymore. And Walus did not deserve to be put at risk of death because of what happened 29 years ago.
Justice Edwin Cameron, thank you for talking to us tonight. We always appreciate your insights and a view on what is happening in our country's prisons and why it is important that institutions like the JICS have sharper teeth to deal with prison populations.